truth of the matter is we have been brainwashed. This culture has been brainwashed to see problems and to see issues and to see sort of our reality from this psychological perspective, from this problem solving, let's go at the weakness, let's find out what's wrong, let's correct what's wrong. Now, what if I told you we were going to ignore what's wrong? We simply were not going to focus at all on what's wrong, and we're only going to focus on what's right. And that's kind of the case that I'm going to put out there tonight. Now, we know that there are people who definitely need therapy. We know that there are cases that definitely need psychiatric care. We know that there are chemical imbalances. We know all of that, and that's really not my argument. That's really not the case that I'm working on tonight. What I'm working on is a way that you have learned to think. A way we have been acculturated to sort of learn to reason. And that is that it's based upon this kind of thinking that you have unconscious conflict. And it's unconscious, and it's back there, baby. It's way back there, and it comes out in your dreams. And one of the first things you should do is go analyze your dreams and find out what your dreams tell you, because for some reason, in finding out what your dreams tell you, it will release a certain amount of energy and you'll be able to go in a certain direction. Is that true? There is this idea that if you kind of understand your conflicts, that if you dig in and you ask why and you get at what's wrong, the more you understand what's wrong, the more that is going to lift up whatever these conflicts are. And once you understand those conflicts, once you have insight into those conflicts, that those conflicts get resolved. You say, aha, now I understand. And my question is, do we really understand? And does understanding, whatever that is, really change anything? Does insight into a process really change a process? And the answer to that question is no. Insight alone into a process doesn't understand a process. But we want to understand. We want to ask questions like why. I'm working with a licensure class now, and they love to ask why. Well, why is this the case? Why is that the case? And it leads us down this territory of what is wrong. Even one of the people who's not even a therapist who's working with me has this wonderful question she asks, just like a therapist. She asks it just like a therapist. She says, tell me more about that. And invariably, the tell me more about that is a tell me more about a negative kind of thing that's going on. Tell me more about this sort of problem thing. Now, what I learned to do when I was a therapist was I learned to listen to you sort of like a ball of yarn. I learned to listen to you, and I would listen to you, and I would listen to you until you said just one thing that was like a little piece of string sticking out from that ball of yarn. And if you said something like, of course that's what my mother always says, blah 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 blah, I would go back and I would say, and what is it that your mother usually says? Tell me more about that. Well, she says, you know, she's well, just give me a little bit more about that. And I start to pull on that little piece of string. Well, my mother was always this, and she had to be this. Tell me a little bit. How did you feel about that? How did that make you feel? And I can keep pulling that string until that ball of yarn unravels. And then there's kind of the belief that as that has unraveled, then we're going to wrap it up again and put you back together with your defenses down and new defenses in place with more psychic energy, and you will be better. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to make you better. I think that in every case, nothing changes with just understanding. I think that understanding is a trap. And understanding is what's going to trap you in terms of wanting to be nice and wanting to hear the story and wanting to hear what another person says so I can get into the understanding part of this so this person will feel like I'm connected. Because if I tell them, look, I don't want to hear your story. I'm not interested in your story. I don't want to know where you came from or why you came from there. We're going to leave all of that behind and we're going to start right at ground zero and we're going to talk about living the fully lived life. The only time that insight is really going to change anything is, and with any therapist, that is after the insight is over and the person gets the aha, aha. Oh, thank you, I feel so much better. I just feel so relieved, I feel so much better. And they do. And we do feel so much better. Somebody has listened, somebody has heard, we've connected with somebody, and they even do studies. And one of the studies says that 80% of the people who have finished therapy say that they were greatly helped and greatly enabled and aided by going through therapy. Well, I want to ask you now, if you've gone through 40 weeks of therapy and paid all that money, are you going to say it was a waste? Probably not. Probably if you had warm, fuzzy feelings with your therapist, and probably if you felt connected, probably you're not going to say that. But at this point of understanding, the crucial important piece of this is when this question gets asked, and that is, in one way or another, when it gets asked, okay, what are we going to do about this? And usually the therapist leaves that up to the client to figure out what they're going to do about this, and in most therapies won't answer that question. But it's after the understanding, and after there's more of this energy available, that comes those magic moments when the therapist can work with the client and say, now I'm going to do this, and 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 I want to do this, and I'm reaching out here, and I'm reaching out here, and I'm building this new stuff into my life. At the point in which a therapist does that, a therapist is going to be successful. Now, maybe somebody's going to say, you know, just getting this out, just hearing my story, just having my story told, just somebody hearing my story. I happen to think that's an illusion. I think that what is important about having a story told, if you don't want to repeat that story, and if you're not going to repeat that story, is not just somebody hearing it. I think what's important is, what are you learning? What are the lessons of this story that you are learning? And maybe in the process of therapy that learning happens, but we haven't highlighted it and we haven't pinpointed it enough. But we're still caught in this idea of, how do I heard it tonight coming out of your pods before you started. How do I fix this? I want to use this to fix this. I want to use this to solve a problem. I want to use this to, I want to make vast, quick changes into something that's going on. I want it to fix something. I want you to give me the answers, Dr. Johnson, so you can tell me how to walk in my business and fix this situation. And all of you are going to go out there in your codependency, in your codependent ways, and you're going to be thinking about coaching in terms of, I've really got to be able to fix this. I've got to be able to fix this issue with this person. I've got to be able to fix that issue in their business. I've got to be able to offer the strategies that fix this. How do we get you out of problem solving? How do we get you out of fixing? How do we get you out of therapy? How do we get you out of problem solving? I've got to solve this problem. This coaching that we are learning about is not about solving or fixing any problem. It assumes, in the coaching that you're learning to do, in the teaching and the mentoring you're learning to do, it assumes that a person is starting here, beginning to live life fully. That where we're starting, the starting point is, how do we live the fully lived life? I don't really care about the problems in your life. I don't care about the problems in your business. Go see a business organizer. Go see a business advisor. Go see a consultant to fix the problems in your business, or go see a therapist to fix the problems in your life. I am not about fixing. I'm a coach. I'm going to tell you how to get better at what you do so you live the fully lived life. We are here, you are here, every one of you, to learn to raise a happiness set point and an emotional set point. And in fact, all of you are already much better at this than you think you are. You are already, if you're into getting your own up spiral, you're into the idea of the two things that will make the difference in people's lives. The first is if you get them in an upward spiral. Nobody's going to play to their strengths if they aren't in an up spiral. You're just not going to do it. Get them into an up spiral, and then after you've got them into an up spiral, teach them their strengths. Introduce them to their strengths. Show them their strengths. Show them how their strengths work. And then you never have to answer, how do I fix this? How do I fix that? Because the thing that they're most upset with most of the time is always, not most of the time, the thing we are most upset about is directly related to the strength we are least using.